going on.
No trouble.
Apologize. All right.
Excuse me, the camera looks like it's angled a little bit differently than it was from before. Is it focused?
Yeah, it's focused. Yeah.
All right. So let's go back. On August 9, 2010, about 12:45 p.m., did you call Mr. Giglio?
I don't actually specifically recall that particular phone call. We had several phone calls during that month.
The month of August 2010?
Yes.
Did you threaten Mr. Giglio that he better stop looking into your past, or he would be sorry, or something in that vein?
Never made any such statement whatsoever.
Did you ever say that he did not know who he was dealing with?
No, I did not make that statement either.
Did he inform you during that phone call that he was going to inform the Deltona Codes office about some rental permits that were, I guess, not up to code?
I'm sorry, what?
She makes statements that Mr. Giglio then said he'd been in touch with the Deltona Codes office about rental permits for a house on Gerona Avenue, and Mr. Crespo began to scream so loud that I could hear him from across the room. Do you recall that?
No, Mildred Snookus is quite theatrical, apparently.
She also says in here that you repeatedly yelled that he would, I guess that you would, ruin Mr. Giglio's life. Is that true?
That I would ruin Mr. Jalil's life? Is that what she's claiming?
It's what's in the document, sir.
Oh, yes.
Which is attached to your petition, so I'm
You
just
need to
asking.
take a moment to read what's here.
Yes.
Read what's here.
Okay. Now, that's a false statement on her part.
Did you ever tell Mr. Giglio that you would kill him, or that you would have someone kill him?
No, I never made any such statement.
Never have.
No. I'm not the one who walks around armed, Mr. Collin. That's for your client to do.
And then Exhibit 2, attached to your petition, is the Office of the Dept of Clemency.
Yes.
This is where your civil rights were restored.
Yes.
And it says here, Edward Allen Crespo, also known as Alan D. D'Amato.
Yes, that's the way the DOC record was written, so that's what they put on the clemency order.
And still your position that the only reason it's there is because the day that you were arrested, they assume that you were Mr. D'Amato. Or coerced you to say that. Police.
I'm sorry, what now?
The police. It was your position. The police said that we will hold you, or
The police assumed that I was actually D'Amato based on documentation that they found in the back of the car that I was driving at the time, which was not my car, and told me that if I did not confess to being D'Amato, they were going to lose me in the system. It was a common practice back in those days, back in the 80s and early 90s. Those were the days of the infamous Hollywood and Hallandale street crimes units. Now, you're probably too young to remember, but there was a time when the police department did not operate, shall we say, in an ethical or legal manner, which they were ultimately caught on. But that was one of those cases.
Exhibit 3 is a copy of your passport.
Yes.
And you attach this? This
It's
is your...
attached to this complaint. It was not sent to Mr. Jalil.
Okay. What was the purpose of attaching your passport?
Proof of identification, proof of my real identity.
Okay. This document is not... it's just to show what your true identity is?
It just shows that, according to the Department of Homeland Security, my real name is Edward Allen Crespo. It's just in support of my claim that Mr. Jalil filed false information about my identity. Same with the birth certificate.
And that's really what you're upset about, is that he has filed some claims to other people regarding your identity. Is that correct, sir?
I'm upset that Mr. Jalil has been unlawfully stalking and harassing and terrorizing me for the past year, and it has now escalated to death threats because of the actions that I've taken against him. As I said before, Mr. Jalil initiated his investigation unlawfully and without having a legitimate case to work, to base it on, and his only client was himself. His motives were strictly the pursuit of his own personal, vindictive, and malicious agenda.
Let's talk about the death threats you claim that he's been making. What death threats have you received?
I've received several death threats over the phone.
Can you specify the dates and times?
The dates were within, well, the first two that came in, each one came in within 24 hours of your client being notified that I had taken a legal action against him.
And the legal action you're referring to, is this legal action?
This is the second one, okay? The first one was I filed a formal complaint against his licenses with the Department of State for violation of the regulations that govern his licenses.
You filed complaints against my client to third parties also.
Oh, I just started doing that. For a whole year, I didn't file anything but an occasional response to his memorandums, letters, emails, and complaints. As I was contacted, I would respond. I was contacted by the City of Deltona Code Enforcement Division. I responded. The complaint was dismissed. But I only took action against him only after he injected himself as a third-party interloper into our civil proceedings with the false information about my identity. At that point, I'd had enough, and I filed a complaint against his license.
You were to get even with him.
Pardon me?
You were to get even with him.
Well, that's a very interesting spin you put on it. I'm simply putting a stop to his terrorist campaign. But of course, you can describe it any way you want.
Let's get back to the death threats. Can I have the dates and times that you
The
received?
time, and I don't exactly have the time. Unfortunately, they were done so quickly that I wasn't able to record any of them. Even if I had, in order to make it legal, I would have had to have given the legally required notification that I was recording the phone call. Like I said, the first one came in within 24 hours or less after I notified Mr. Jalil that I had filed a complaint against his licenses. The second one came in about a day or so, approximately, give or take, after he was made aware of the fact that we had filed the restraining order, petition for the restraining order.
And this was it was him that was making the death threat?
Couldn't be anybody else. I don't have a single problem with anyone else in the world. No confrontational situations with anybody that would warrant that type of activity.
Can you describe what the first phone call was?
Yes. The first phone call was just a muffled voice on the phone. In all probability, it probably wasn't actually your client making the phone calls. In the past, he's had his flunkies do that for him. The first phone call came in, and a muffled voice said, "Crespo, you really effed up now. You're not going to be around much longer." That was after I filed the complaint with the Department of State. The second phone call that came in was also done in the exact same manner, same blocked caller ID, and that one was pretty much, "Crespo, you don't learn your effing lesson, they're going to find you in a dumpster." Each time, as soon as those statements were made, the caller disconnected.
But as we sit here today, for sure, you don't know if that was Mr. Jalil making that phone call, do you?
All I have to go by is typicality and his past history.
But you don't know for certain that it was him. You're just assuming it was him.
Oh, you mean, can I prove it? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying you don't know for sure if that was his voice on the phone call that you received.
Well, Counselor, let me respond this way, okay? I don't know for sure that it was your client or not, but like I know for sure if I drop something out of my hand, it's going to hit the ground. Same principle applies. It was your client, because there's no one else it could have been. That's my contention.
In Exhibit 4, you attached, I guess, a copy, which purports to be a copy of your birth certificate?
It is my birth certificate. There's no purports about it. Yes.
Let's move on to Exhibit 5. This is another memorandum that my client, I guess, apparently has drafted. And the people that he sends it to is the clerk, United States District Court, FBI, I guess, and Carlos Cabrera.
Yes.
You're not addressed on here, are you?
No, I'm not.
And this was sent on May 9th, 2011?
Apparently.
How did you get a copy of this?
This may have come, well, wait a minute. Oh, yes, I remember now. This was your client unlawfully injecting himself into our civil proceedings, and he sent the case to the clerk of courts so that it was filed in our case, as part of our case. The documentation is on the top there, the identification. The clerk of courts sent copies to the defense attorney and to Mr. Russell, of course, that these documents had been submitted in the case. That's how I was able to get hold of them. I got them from Mr. Russell.
How is this memorandum an act of violence against you?
I'm sorry, object to the form.
I'm sorry, again, we're back to the same thing.
Well, I'm just trying to understand why you would attach Exhibit 5. Like, what is the purpose?
Well, you know, the attachments may not reflect acts of violence, but the actions do, and what actually happened was, in fact, an act of violence, the phone calls, the threatening phone calls. You can't attach phone calls to a document, of course, since they're not tangible. But whatever documents are here, regardless of how you want to identify them, all clearly serve to show your client's intentions and actions. And whether or not they were actually threatening or not, I really don't feel is that relevant to the core issue of this case.
Well, even in this memorandum, if you want to take the time to read it, he doesn't make any threats against you directly.
Look, Mr. Collin, I understand you're trying to find any way you can to get your client off the hook, but that is your job. But making these splitting of hairs, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, as far as making a big issue over the fact that several documents here don't actually reflect a threat, doesn't change the fact that I am in fear for my life and that your client threatened me. So, no, there's no actual threats attached to these documents.
But Exhibit 5,
Yes.
we're just talking one thing at a time.
Yes, I understand.
In Exhibit 5, that you attach to your petition, there's no threat by my client against you personally.
No, I think these exhibits were actually used to show the court the I don't know how to describe it, the mentality of the actions of your client, more so than to show an actual threat. I'm not, again, like I say, I'm not a lawyer, so, you know, these are matters that the judge is going to have to decide.
But you're attaching him to your petition, sir, so I'm just trying to understand a document that's written
Yes, I understand
to
what you're trying to do.
3 different people, one of them is not you,
Yes.
which makes no personal threats against you,
Yes, excuse me.
why you consider this important to attach to your petition when you're asking for the court to enter an injunction against repeat violence.
Object to the form.
It just goes to show, this is just another example of your client's consistent stalking of me.
It's not directed at you.
No, it's directed about me.
You told some other people about some information to you that may or may not be correct.
No, there's no may or may not about it, Counselor. It wasn't correct.
Okay.
And
But there are public
and-
records out there that show two different names for you.
Pardon me?
There are public records out there that show you go by two different names.
Yes.
You
What a
just-
shame your client didn't bother to verify it first.
Object to the form.
So he's just informing other people that you may have an alias.
Object to the form.
Your client is unlawfully injecting himself as a third-party interloper, which constitutes tortious interference into somebody else's civil matters, which he has absolutely nothing to do with whatsoever. Now, if you want to sugarcoat it and try to minimize it, again, like I say, that's your job, I understand. But clearly, your client's actions were improper, and now he's paying the price for it.
And how is he paying the price?
We're here, aren't we? He's about to lose his licenses, quite possibly, isn't he?
Why is that?
Why is that? Because he violated the regulations that govern his licenses. He was not allowed to engage in an unlawful, unauthorized investigation. No response?
He doesn't have to respond.
Okay, that's fine.
Let's go to Exhibit 6. This is I guess, an email from my client to Dennis Muse, Codes Enforcement Officer, and a Dale Baker.
Which memorandum is that?
It's,
It's Exhibit 6 in here.
Exhibit 6.
6.
Right here, see? Just keep turning until you see it at the bottom.
So many documents were generated, it's hard to keep track of them all.
There you go.
Yes, okay, here we go.
Okay. And you attach this Exhibit 6.
Mm-hmm.
And here my client's contacting somebody at the Code Enforcement Office regarding a possible code violation at your residence.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
No, that was not a code violation. He's attaching a claim of fraudulent identity. Big difference there.
It says may have been filed fraudulently. It says,
Pardon me?
please advise that the application for the rental permit may have been filed fraudulently.
Uh-huh. And then in the next statement, he says, excuse me just a second here. Oh, here we go. Next paragraph. At this link, you may enter Edward Crespo and see for yourself that his real name is D'Amato Allen. And then in the previous paragraph, he says that I'm doing business under the alias of Edward Allen Crespo. That's not a may, that's an is. That's a direct accusation.
Well, isn't that true that if you go at the website, you'll see that your name comes up?
It doesn't make any difference what's on the website, Counselor. Your client made a false accusation against me, claimed that my real name was Alan D'Amato and not Edward Allen Crespo. He claimed that I was doing business under an alias. His claims were false. I don't care where he got his information from. He got it and it was incorrect and he didn't verify it.
And that makes
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Here's what I was looking for. Down here, last paragraph. Please consider this email as a letter of complaint that Mr. Alan D'Amato is doing business as Edward Allen Crespo to obtain a rental permit application under false pretenses. That's a direct accusation. That's not a maybe.
So he's asking them to look into it to see if you're doing something fraudulent.
Not in that statement, he wasn't. Not in that statement. That was a direct accusation. He's not asking them anything. He's making an allegation against me.
And that makes you angry.
Irrelevant.
Well, I'm just saying,
Irrelevant.
it's to a third party,
Yeah, it's irrelevant whether it makes me angry or not.
but you attach Exhibit 6 to your petition.
Yes, I
I
know.
mean, it's an email
You keep
to
falling back on that same defense.
I Ask a question.
Yeah, okay, that's
Makes
fine.
things a
Go
lot
ahead.
easier, too.
Yes, that's true, sorry.
So you attached an exhibit to your petition.
Mm-hmm,
It's an email to two third parties.
mm-hmm,
It's not addressed to
Yes.
you,
yes.
and it's making a complaint regarding it. Correct?
It's filing a false allegation against me.
Which you believe is a false allegation.
Oh, am I wrong? Am I Alan D'Amato? Your client claims I am. It's a false allegation. I don't care how you slice it. I don't care what kind of lawyer description you put on it. It is what it is.
But this isn't directed to you.
No,
So you
it's just directed about me.
Yeah, but it's not an assault or battery. It's not hitting you.
Yeah,
Not
we've
threatening
been-
to hurt you.
Yes, we've been through that before, too. That's right, Counselor. I will stipulate that there is no actual threat made in that particular memorandum. It's simply used to show a pattern of behavior.
Okay, and here's Exhibit 7. Your petition. So I guess another memorandum generated by my client. He addresses it to the Department of State, Division of Corporations, to Budget Notary Services, to Kingsley Shinner, Melissa Irons, to you, Edward Crespo, and Sheila Shinner. Do you know who Kingsley Shinner is?
Yes, he's the owner of Shinner Accounting, the firm that we used simply to notarize the lease.
And who is Melissa Irons?
And Melissa Irons is the poor unfortunate notary that actually notarized the lease against whom your client ultimately filed a complaint.
And who's Sheila Shinner Piper?
Sheila Shinner Piper is the other co-owner of the Deltona property.
How is she related to you?
She's simply, she was my girlfriend at one time.
No longer?
No, we still co-own the property though.
And how is she related to Kingsley Shinner?
Kingsley and her are siblings, as your client states in his memorandum, in his complaint. However, Kingsley Shinner was not the one who notarized the lease. Therefore, there was no conflict of interest, as your client claimed.
Okay. So he's making a complaint. This complaint is against Melissa Irons and her supervisor, Kingsley Shinner.
Yes.
So it says it's not against you personally, correct?
Object to the form.
Excuse me, just a moment. Are we talking about Exhibit 8 here?
7.
7, excuse me, I'm sorry, just a moment.
There you go.
I'm sorry, now what was the last question again?
The first paragraph says, please consider this letter as a notice of complaint against Melissa L. Irons, comma, DD 829616, comma, and her supervisor, Kingsley Shinner of Shinner Accounting.
Yes. What about it?
So he's not filing a complaint against you.
Filing the complaint against me? No, he addresses the complaint, a copy to me.
Well, he sends you a copy.
Pardon me?
He sends you a copy.
Yes, he did. And in the bottom paragraph there, he mentions my irrelevant public record again. But no, he didn't actually file the complaint against me. Oh, excuse me, wait a minute. Mr. Crespo's association with Mr. Kingsley Shinner has been reported to the FDLE via memorandum. Well, apparently he did file a complaint against me. It just wasn't this one.
That was to a different department. This is to the Department of State and Division of Corporations, correct?
Yes, that's fine. Yes. He would have no grounds to file a complaint against me since I hold no licenses under the control of the Department of State or Division of Corporations.
And he's claiming there's a conflict of interest regarding notarizing the document.
Yes, that's
Object to the
right.
form.
Doesn't make any difference. The complaint was dismissed as being invalid.
But this isn't directed towards you. How is Exhibit 7? How is this an act?
He attacks me
Violence.
again.
Object to the form.
He attacks me in this exhibit. Okay, he attacks me with an ancient and irrelevant public record, as he's done in every document he's filed.
Where he talks about your prior arrest record,
Right. Totally irrelevant.
which is public record.
Yes, it is. It also has absolutely no bearing whatsoever on anything.
But would you agree that that's not an act of violence? Just
Uh,
notifying?
You and I don't agree on
Objective form.
anything as far as that goes, Mr. Collin, but I will say no, that does not appear to be an act of violence. It's just an act of slander and defamation.
We have Exhibit 8 that you've attached. This one's directed to the FDLE.
Yes,
It's regarding you.
yes it is.
It says, please be advised that Mr. Edward Allen Crespo has asserted that he has influence within the Volusia County Sheriff's Office. He's also purported to have been a former law enforcement official in Volusia County and also worked in the Animal Control Department. Is that true?
Your client makes a lot of false statements.
You never informed him that you had influence in the Sheriff's Office?
I have never informed him of anything other than the fact that I was at that time an 11-year member of the Florida Sheriff's Association. Nothing more. I have never held myself out to be a police officer. I have never flashed a fake metal badge, let alone in a bank full of security cameras, as he alleges. And I have never worked as an animal control officer. I have worked with the Volusia County Sheriff in the past on animal abuse cases in a civilian capacity, nothing more.
It says in June of 2010, he reported, I guess he, meaning I guess you, reported to this private investigator, which I guess is him, that he inquired into the Volusia County Sheriff's Office and had inside knowledge of a surveillance detail upon a home on the 1100 block of Gerona Avenue in Deltona, Florida. Sorry. Is that true?
I have no idea what your client is talking about. It's just another one of his hearsay statements, I guess. We discussed a house that was down the street where the police were there all the time. If that's what he wants to twist and distort into the statement that he's made, well, I guess I can't stop him from doing that.
Who's Matthew William Ross?
He was one of the former tenants who was there long before your client rented the house.
And Marvin
Same thing.
Linda Haste?
Yes.
And William
All
Jeffrey
four
Lang?
of them, totally uninvolved, third-party individuals, all of whom rented the house before Mr. Jalil did. It's kind of curious. I'm kind of wondering where he got so much specific information on these four individuals, their names, their date of birth, their ages. And for that matter, why would he even investigate them in the first place? They have absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with anything.
Who's Jake Meyer?
Jake Meyer is a friend of the family and a sort of handyman, I guess you could say, that every once in a while does a little painting or a little work for me.
So this is in that this document, Exhibit A, is just another complaint that my client's making to another government agency regarding you, correct?
Object to the form.
I'm sorry, you just,
What would you say this is, this Exhibit A? How would you
what would
categorize it?
I say this is? This is a totally false statement with nothing but unproven hearsay designed to damage me legally in the hopes of getting me in trouble with law enforcement.
Did this put you in fear of your life?
Pardon me?
This put you in fear of your life from my
That was the
client?
that was one of the first indications I had that your client was a very dangerous man. If he's willing to put stuff like this down in writing and send it to the FDLE, how much else would he be willing to do? That was the first red flag. All the rest came later.
Okay. Then you have Exhibit 8A, which I guess is a couple emails.
Yes,
How'd you obtain these emails?
your client sent them to me.
Sent them to?
Well, no, wait a minute, excuse me, I'm sorry. On these emails, I had an attorney up in Volusia County make a public records request from the City of Deltona Code Enforcement Department, and he simply went and picked up all the copies of all the emails that Mr. Jalil sent to the code enforcement officers, and he sent them to me, and that's how I got them. It's all public record.
You're a representative. But Mr. Jalil never sent these emails to you.
No, he sent them to Dennis Muse and one other individual in the same department, I believe. I don't recall the name offhand.
And then we have an Exhibit 9. This is I guess a letter memorandum to Shamili Hardy,
Shamily Hardy, yes.
Shamily Hardy, Hardy.
Yes, she was
Who's
she was the young girl who rented the house after Mr. Jalil.
Okay, and this
He
is,
unlawfully contacted her, too.
he just sent her a letter about some things that he wants her to be aware of.
Mr. Jalil interfered with my rental business in a blatant act of tortious interference by improperly contacting my tenant.
That's a civil action though against him, correct?
Pardon me?
Would you say that's a civil action against him? Not a petition for injunction against repeat violence?
Counselor, we've gone over this many times. I told you before, these documents show a pattern of behavior of your client which led up to the actual threat of physical violence. He's simply escalating his activities.
These are all in August of 2010,
Yes,
so it's over a year ago.
yes, he hasn't stopped.
So, 7
In
months.
fact, I just recently received his most recent complaint, the one that he filed with the DMV. I just received a copy of that not 3 days ago. He filed that one April 28th of this year. We didn't know it at the time that these documents were submitted.
Then he made another complaint to another third party
Yes,
regarding it.
he filed a complaint with the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles alleging that I had obtained a driver's license with false identification. That too was investigated and dismissed.
Okay. When you go back to your petition, go to the document called continuation sheets. On your continuation sheets, when I guess these are referencing all your exhibits that you've attached,
Yes.
all these exhibits were sent, all these correspondence from August, I guess August of 2010 through May of 2011. These were all sent to third parties.
Not all of them. I recall one or two of them being sent to me as well.
Well, the one that was sent to you was the one addressed regarding the notary, which is not necessarily a complaint against you.
Yes. Now, please keep something in mind, Counselor. Just because your client didn't specifically name me as a recipient of a copy of his memorandums, that doesn't mean that he didn't send them to me. Because in most cases, he did. He wanted me to know exactly what he was doing.
But
He would send them by mail or whatever, but yeah. Along with his letters and his demands for his security deposit back. Keep in mind, this whole matter all started as a result of a dispute over a $625 security deposit, and everything he has done since then has been because of that. Little obsessive, don't you think?
This is just going to give him back the $625, and it's a lot easier, right?
I wouldn't give him back 6 cents. He damaged my house 3 times that amount.
Now let's talk about your paragraph 6. It says petitioner generally fears repeat violence by respondent. This is after you've attached your continuation sheets and all your exhibits. It says respondent told me when he first signed a lease with me that he always has a gun on him all the time and has more available. Did he say that to you as a threat?
No,
As opposed to that?
he said it to me as just during the course of casual conversation when we were sitting in the waiting room in the front office of the accounting firm when we were signing the lease. That's when he told me about being a private investigator, and the subject turned to guns, and he informed me that he always has a gun. If not on him, then close by.
It also says he repeatedly told me he carried a gun, that he was going to, quotation marks, take care of me. When did he make that statement to you?
That was during one of our heated phone conversations back sometime in August of 2010, I guess it was.
But that claim was made over the phone to you.
It's, yes. Yeah, it was,
And you guys-
It was the first time he had actually threatened me, I believe.
But during that time in August of 2010, I guess when that dispute of the deposit was going on,
Oh, yes, that's when it was at its worst.
you were calling him and he was also calling you, correct? So you were
I don't know,
trying to communicate with him?
I don't recall that he was actually calling me. He was continuously sending me threatening letters. He wasn't so much for phone calls. He more preferred to take his actions in the form of letters and emails and complaints and so forth. He leaves a very nice paper trail.
You didn't attach any of those documents to your petition, though?
No, I did not.
You didn't think they were relevant?
I think that if they are determined to be relevant by my attorney, then we will produce them at the trial.
Are you planning on producing them at the trial?
You'll have to ask my attorney about that. I go by his advice.
It says, in this conversation, he told me to check out his website, and you'll see what I do.
Oh, yes, that was when I first became aware of his mercenary-like statements and claims, allegations, whatever you want to call it, his boasts about what he does that are contained on the homepage of his Blue Delta website.
But this was also over the phone.
Pardon me?
He also made these comments to you over the phone, correct?
He said something. No, well, he said something to me about check out his website, to that effect.
Yeah, but this was done over telephone conversations, and this is not in person.
No, this was like I say, this was during the heated discussions back and forth.
Do you know where he was residing in August of 2010?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you know where he was residing or where he was when you were having these telephone calls?
Counselor, I would have no way of knowing that. According to the information on the internet, your client has more addresses connected to his name than a traveling carnival. He shows addresses in virtually every state in the country, including Alaska and Hawaii. I have no idea where he lives. But I just know that he's got an awful lot of addresses attached to him.
Where were you when these phone calls were taking place?
I don't recall.
And then you said, I looked at his website and states that the respondent works as Blue Delta and that he identifies, penetrates, and neutralizes.
His claims on his website in typical mercenary fashion are identify, penetrate, and neutralize. Exactly what mercenaries do.
But he didn't state that to you, you just saw that on his website.
I believe he mentioned something about his website, so therefore I took a look at it. Prior to that, I did not have any knowledge of the specific details of what he does for a living.
So you looked at his website and you read those words and that put you in genuine fear of repeat violence by him?
Pardon me?
I'm asking you, you went on his website in your house or your office on the computer and you read that his
It occurred to
website...
me that if the identification of identify, penetrate, and neutralize is what he was talking about when he told me to check out his website, then yes, that was the beginning of it.
Is it those, when you looked at his website, that shows the basis of your genuine fear of repeat violence?
That wasn't the basis of it, that was just a small part of it.
The words that you read on his website?
Pardon me?
The words that you read on his website?
The claims that he made on his website.
That anybody can say. They're not directed specifically at you, though.
No, that's true.
Is that true?
That's true.
So anybody can read that. I can go on his website and read that it says that he identifies, penetrates, and neutralizes.
Yes, that you certainly can.
It says respondent has a pattern of violence, aggravated stalking, and threats to others as well. What is his pattern of violence that you claim here?
He sent a couple of his flunkies to try to gain access into my house. One of them succeeded. They both did that by means of fraudulent misrepresentation, calling me up and claiming to be prospective tenants. I declined one meeting, but I did allow the other meeting, and this gentleman that your client refers to only as a quote-unquote witness in one of his memorandum, in his letter to me, illegally entered my house and was able to obtain information regarding the new tenants, a young, single female with small children. That I would call aggravated stalking. The other gentleman, who is also a licensed private investigator, and I will be dealing with him as well in the not-too-distant future.
What do you mean by that?
I will be filing a complaint against his license as well. He knowingly took part in an unauthorized investigation.
What's the definition of an unauthorized investigation?
Not having a legitimate case to work from. Your own personal agenda. Not having a client, except of course for yourself. That's an unauthorized investigation. No justifiable grounds.
So he's making, so my client and his flunkies, as you described them
Yes,
as,
flunkies.
you know,
Mhm.
so you're now going to file complaints against them, because they filed complaints against you.
Oh, no, not against them, just against the licensed private investigator that took part in the unauthorized and unlawful investigation. The other guy is just some street kid, as far as I can tell.
What are the threats to others that you claim he's made?
I don't know, that was put there by my attorney. You'll have to ask him about the definition.
Is there any other facts or circumstances to which you're going to rely upon at trial to make up the basis for your fear of repeat violence by my client?
I haven't decided that yet. I'm not sure. I'll have to continue my preparation for that.
Are there any witnesses that you're going to bring to trial?
I'm not sure about that either.
Who are potential witnesses?
Again, like I say, I'm not sure.
When do you think?
I haven't really given it a great deal of thought. My attorney tells me that the situation is well in hand.
Don't talk about what I tell you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I leave those decisions to my attorney.
You understand that a temporary injunction was not entered as a result of your petition for repeat violence, correct?
Yes, only because of the distance between us,
Is that what you believe?
I would assume.
And maybe it's because of the fact there's no violence in any of these allegations?
Well, maybe we should stop speculating and deal with the facts.
My client's never hit you, correct? Has he ever pushed you?
I certainly hope not. He's a martial arts expert.
Has he ever hit you?
That would be use of a deadly weapon.
Has he ever hit you?
No,
Has he pushed you?
no,
Punched you?
no. Of course not.
Has he ever, in your presence, when you're face-to-face in person, ever tried to hit you or brandish a gun at you?
We didn't have our confrontational situation started after we were no longer in direct physical contact with each other. Everything happened over the phone and through the mail.
When's the last time you had an in-person meeting with my client?
Oh. I honestly can't remember. I believe it was actually at the time we signed the lease.
So November of 2009. So last time
The actual time I was face-to-face with him,
physically in his presence.
physically in his presence, yes. Like I said, I live 250 miles away.
we're
Yes,
talking-
we signed the lease. I went back to my home. He moved into the house, and everything else was conducted by mail.
So we're talking almost 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
You've never seen him since November of 2009, other than...
I'm sorry, Counselor, I don't understand the relevance of your question.
I'm just asking if you've never seen him since November of 2009. You've never been in his physical presence.
No, just heard from him constantly.
Through telephone or via letters.
Letters, complaints, emails, memorandums.
Whose number is 954-803-9221?
That's my cell phone.
Would you have called him on August 1st, 2010?
I believe I did.
That was probably about the time he was moving out of the house?
He had already moved out of the house. I showed up one day later.
Were you angry with Mr. Giulio regarding the condition of the home?
Yes, I was.
Did you scream and yell at him during those phone calls?
I was probably a little forceful in some of the things I said. I didn't threaten him or anything like that. But I had just made a 250-mile trip for absolutely nothing. I found out that I had to come back again with tools and cleaning equipment and other things I would need to repair the property.
And that made you angry?
Pardon me?
That made you angry, upset? It was upsetting to you?
Yes, it certainly was.
Did you make another call to Mr. Giulio on August 7th, 2010?
I don't recall whether I did or not.
Have you ever used profanity with him?
I probably swore at him a little bit. He lied to me.
When did he lie to you?
When he told me that the house was in perfect condition and ready to be re-rented. And I come up there and found exactly the opposite.
So when you came up there and found out that the house was not in the condition as he claimed it to be, that's where it set you off?
I contacted him at that point and told him, amongst other things, that he wasn't getting his security deposit back. He had called me several times previous to him actually vacating the property to request that I return his security deposit along with his personal assurances that everything was fine with the house. In fact, I believe he even asked me to mail the security deposit back to a business address, one of his many business addresses in Deltona, before even seeing the property, that I should just take his word for the fact that everything was fine and send him his money back. I did not do that, of course.
You kept it?
Pardon me?
You kept it?
Absolutely. It should also be noted, Counselor, that...
There's no question pending.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to make a... Okay.
On May 30th, 2011, did you file a complaint with the Division of Consumer Services?
Division of Consumers. That complaint was incorrectly sent to their office. I had to refile the complaint, which I have done, to the correct department and location, which is the licensing, enforcement, and regulation. Somehow or other, the complaint wound up in consumer mediation, which I did not request in the complaint. My complaint was for the violation of licensing regulations.
Did you send a complaint on June 12th, 2011?
I don't have any documents in front of me. Specify the complaint, please.
Did you write a letter to the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, Division of Consumer Services?
That sounds like the initial complaint that I filed.
Did you fax that out on or about June 12th, 2011?
Again, I don't have that document in front of me.
Do you remember filing anything like that?
I filed a complaint against him. 2 complaints, actually. I had to refile it with additional updated information just recently again.
Did you send a letter to Carlos Cabrera
Oh, yes, I did.
on May 12th, 2011?
Yeah, if that's the date on it, then yes.
I'd like to mark that as an exhibit. Let's see. Accept that. You also faxed this over to Mr. Giulio?
I believe I did.
This is dated May 12th. This is approximately, what, three, almost 4 weeks prior to you filing your petition for injunction?
If that's the date on the injunction, then yes.
You write in here the last sentence of your first paragraph. His blatant abuse of his license and authority will not, in all capital letters, go unpunished on the exclamation point.
That's correct.
So you're looking to punish him?
We're here, aren't we?
So you're filing this to punish him?
No, I'm filing this because I'm afraid for what he's going to do to me. I'm in fear for my life and my safety.
Even though you haven't seen him for almost 2 years?
Totally irrelevant.
You put in here, you said, at the last paragraph, if you're wondering why I'm contacting you in this manner, I will now inform you that this communication will be included as part of the package that will be presented at Mr. Jalil's trial for torturous interference, stalking, and harassment. What trial is that?
I'm contemplating bringing suit against Mr. Jalil for his actions.
A civil suit against him?
Yes.
You like the word shoot yourself in the foot, correct?
It's one of my favorite expressions when describing your client. Oh, yes, no, that's the...
No question.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Yes. Okay.
What number is 954-922-1253?
That's my home phone number.
That's your home phone number?
Yes.
Court report, mark that.
Do you need me to ask them if anything is bothering you next door?
They picking up on the video?
Might.
Yeah, let's tell them to be quiet a little
Okay,
bit.
just give me 1 second. Sorry.
If it's a party, ask if we're invited.
Thanks for looking out for us.
Oh, no. Okay, go ahead.
Have you ever offered yourself as a police officer or sheriff?
I'm sorry, what?
Have you ever told anybody that you are a police officer or a sheriff?
No, I have not.
Have you ever told anybody that you're a former police officer or sheriff?
No, I have not.
Have you ever told anybody you're a retired police officer or sheriff?
Certainly not. God, do I look that old?
Have you ever told anybody you're working for the police or sheriff department at any time?
I have never said anything more than I am a member of the Florida Sheriff's Association, which I am.
Did you ever tell Ms. Sanukis that the police were watching, I guess, the Jerome Avenue Street?
I do not recall ever making that statement to her, but then again, I really don't recall ever even talking to her.
You ever remember making that same statement to Mr. Jalil?
No, I do not.
Have you ever been an informant for the police or the sheriff's office of Volusia County?
No, I have not.
Have you ever attempted to obtain any reports on Mr. Jalil from any law enforcement officer?
No, I have not. I'm sorry, let me ask for clarification on that.
Outside of your public records request?
Outside of my public records requests?
Yeah.
What public records requests are we talking about
We
here?
testify that you made a public records request to the city.
That's how
Oh,
got
you
it.
mean in terms of getting copies of his, oh, okay, I see. So in other words, are you asking me, did I ever ask for information from the police about Mr. Jalil?
Yes.
No, of course not.
Have you ever gotten any certified letters from Mr. Jalil?
In the beginning, yes.
Did you get one in honor about October of 2010?
I don't remember.
You ever refuse those certified letters?
After a while, I started refusing them, yes,
Why did you do that?
because I was tired of the continuous harassment and threats by Mr. Jalil in his letters demanding his security deposit back.
Should be the next exhibit. Then it's not there. Let's really look at that. Mr. Russell. I called you Mr. Holiday.
No. I can call Mr. Holiday, Mr. Hunt, Mr. Russell.
As long as they call you, right?
33 and a third % chance of getting it right.
Mr. Crespo, is this a copy of the complaint that you filed against Mr. Jalil?
Yeah, this is the first original complaint, yes.
And on the top, there's a fax header. It says May 30th, 2011, 14:25, I guess 2:25 p.m. And the phone number 954-922-1253.
Yes, very
That-
strange that it would come up that way. If that's a fax.
There's no question.
So did you fax that to Mr. Jalil?
I believe I did.
So right around the time that you're filing your petition for repeat violence, you're afraid of him, you contact him, you're sending him faxes.
Sorry, I don't understand the relevance of the question.
You just filed a petition with the court in June of 2011, correct?
Yes.
Saying that you have genuine fear of repeat violence from Mr. Jalil.
Oh, yes, that's right, because it was right after I faxed him the copy of this complaint was when I got the first death threat.
You're trying to communicate with him, you're engaging him.
I'm simply sending him as I was requested to see. The problem is that different departments of the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services have different regulations about filing complaints. This complaint was supposed to go to licensing enforcement. Instead, it wound up in consumer mediation. The rules of consumer mediation says that if you file a complaint against a licensee, you are required to send them a copy of the complaint. And that is my reason for sending Mr. Jalil this. The second complaint was filed with a different department, a different location, and under different circumstances, and he did not receive a copy of that.
Well, I'm just talking about this, so you were represented by Mr. Russell during this time period, correct?
Yes.
So Mr. Russell.
But not against Mr. Jalil. The petition for the restraining order had not been filed yet.
I also, just for the record, note, I just noticed for the first time that Mr. Crespo put on here that I advised him to file this complaint. I want to make sure that there's no inadvertent violation of the attorney-client privilege with regard to this.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Okay. Page 2, there's another letter you're writing to the Florida Department of Agriculture.
That's a continuation of the complaint from page 1.
You like to write in all caps sometimes, don't you, sir?
Print. I don't know.
You're
what you mean.
typing here, it says, in the second page, as a licensed private investigator, he should have confirmed the accuracy of his information before, and it's in all caps, transmitting it, but in his malicious and vindictive rush to damage me.
I'm sorry, you jumped the page. I'm sorry, I thought we were on this page, the beginning of the actual complaint.
I'm moving past that.
Yeah, you jumped past that one. Okay.
It says he failed to do so.
So what was your question now?
You're saying you like to write in all caps. What is the significance of writing in all caps?
I don't understand the significance of the question, so how could I?
Well, why did you write before and the word failed in all caps? What was the purpose of that?
For accentuation.
Have you filed a civil action yet for stalking, harassment, and torture offense, or that's gonna happen?
One legal proceeding at a time. Once we get through with this, I'll make the decision as to whether or not I want to take it farther.
So now you've made several complaints at several different organizations regarding which you state in paragraph 3 of this letter, including the FDLE, the FBI, Crespo County Sheriff's Office, the City of Deltona Code Enforcement, and the Federal Court in Broward County.
You make complaints against your client, counselor. I simply responded to the complaints that he filed first.
I understand that, but you're saying that he's made these complaints about you
Oh,
to
yes.
these regular organizations. That's what I said.
Yes, what
You've had
page
to
are we
respond to them.
on?
The same letter, the
Okay.
May 31st, 2011 letter.
Uh-huh.
So, and now you're trying to push back on him now. Now you're filing complaints against him. Because you're filing complaints.
This is a complaint to begin with to the Department of Agriculture against his license. Well, it's supposed to be against his license. I simply mentioned all the different agencies that he's filed complaints against me on. I didn't file complaints with the FDLE against him, or the Volusia County Sheriff's Office, or the City of Deltona. I simply responded to his memorandums and his emails.
That's not what I said, sir. It's not what I asked.
Okay, I'm sorry. What did
I
you
said
ask?
now you're starting to file complaints about him because you've gotten fed up with him filing complaints against you.
Well, it goes a little more than just being fed up with what he's been doing. I'm fed up with being a victim. I'm fed up with being stalked and harassed. I'm fed up with being threatened.
But he hasn't made any personal threats to you directly. And any of the exhibits that you've attached to your petition, there's no direct threat from him to you.
No, that's another situation entirely.
And then on May 19th, I guess you write a letter to Deputy Millay, whatever his name is.
I wrote a response, yes.
And you sent one to FDLE and the FBI.
Yes, responses.
Is this a true and fair copy of the letter you sent?
Where we talk, what's,
The letter you sent on May 19th, 2011. Is this a true and fair copy of it?
to the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services? Is that what we're talking, that letter we're talking
We're
about?
on page 4. You also sent, I'm just going on page 4 of your fax. I'm just going page after page.
Yes, that was my response to his memorandums.
You think he's a malicious and vindictive interloper?
He is.
You put in here, no one takes his rants seriously.
Not anymore.
What do you mean by not anymore?
Ever since he shot himself in the foot with his bad information and filed incorrect allegations and complaints with all these different law enforcement agencies, then had to turn around and retract it all, his credibility is zero. In fact, the FBI that I had a meeting with told me they didn't want to hear from him anymore, and for that matter, so did Sergeant Pogg from the Volusia County Sheriff's Office, in a phone conversation I had with her.
And how long ago was that?
I don't know, it was the time that I sent them, I was contacted by the Volusia County Sheriff's Department questioned about the identity. I sent them the same set of verification documents about my identity, and after that, I was told that they did not want to hear from your client anymore.
But you don't take his rant seriously, do you? You said no one takes his rant
I
seriously.
take his threats very seriously. He may have lost his credibility. Oh, I'm sorry.
You also put, we're on page 5 of the facts.
Mhm.
Says that Mr. Jalil admits to having sent one of his cohorts to illegally enter my house in Deltona by fraudulently misrepresenting himself to be a prospective tenant.
Yes, he sent that to me in his very first letter.
Do you have a copy of that letter?
I don't have it with me, but yes, I do have a copy of it. He actually admits sending 2.
You put in here, we're in the bottom of the big paragraph 3. You admit I did raise my voice because I was so angry about the condition of my property and the fact that he lied to me and said the place was clean and ready to be re-rented.
Yes. I already said that before.
And you put that, you said the only other topic of conversation was the security deposit, which I told Mr. Jalil he would not be getting back. That is the precise reason for this war, in quotation marks, between him and I. It was shortly after that Mr. Jalil sent his spy to see if he could get inside my house, which he did at Mr. Jalil's instructions. Do you think you're having a war with Mr. Jalil?
That's how I would describe it.
Your second and last paragraph, you said, copies of this letter will be sent to every agency that Mr. Jalil contacted with his memorandums in the past year. And you write in all caps, I guess for emphasis, now it's my turn, Mr. Jalil, see you in court.
Yes,
You making a threat to him?
I'm making a statement of fact. Here we are.
So you're gonna start to make him his life solicitor role.
You know, Counselor, like I said, you know, you can put the, as we say in layman's terms, you can put the slick lawyer spin on it all you want, okay? But the point of the matter is that Mr. Jalil is getting exactly what he deserves, a taste of his own medicine.
And that's what you're looking to do to him.
I'm looking to put a stop to him threatening my life.
But nowhere in your petition does it say anything about any direct threats on your life.
Well, that's because the threats were made after the petition was generated.
But you haven't filed an amended petition.
Again, that's up to my attorney.
Take a break for a moment.
Sure.
Thanks.